indulge me, if you will, a little whinge about Gareth Southgate. Now, there's going to be really nothing new in this moan, but I think that sort of tells a story in its own right. The fact that, I think some of the complaints that I might have now are some of the complaints that have been there for quite some time with Gareth. And I'm sort of mindful I don't want to come across as a sort of bitter West Ham fan, as it were, because I just want to sort of make the point I don't really care that neither James Ward-Prowse or Jarrod Bowen were selected for the England squad on this occasion. That doesn't mean to say that, particularly in Bowen's case, I feel it would be advantageous to West Ham for him to get into the England squad, because we have a bit of a contractual situation, a bit of a contractual standoff going on with Jarrod Bowen and West Ham at the moment, which I'll discuss in our video. That was actually going to be the video for today. Maybe I'll upload it later, maybe it'll be tomorrow. But I just really want to talk about the whole England situation, because I find it very odd and I find it incredibly frustrating, actually. But as I say, I want to leave the West Ham players apart, because aside from the Bowen situation, I don't care that they weren't selected. And I certainly think that Gareth Southgate's got enough good players at his disposal that he doesn't, whether he picks West Ham players or not is sort of by the by, really. However, I think it's hard to make the case that he's picking the very best players at his disposal, and certainly in the positions that are best suited to them. And I know I'm not the only person that was sort of not only frustrated with Harry Maguire and particularly Jordan Henderson's inclusion, but unsurprised by it. I was unsurprised by the fact that he selected them. I think what did surprise me was Henderson starting in the first team. I saw somebody describe it as two fingers up. I don't think it is, because it was almost like the suggestion is that Gareth Southgate's sticking two fingers up at his critics. I don't think he cares about his critics. I don't think he's trying to appease his critics. I think actually it's worse than that. And actually the worst thing is he feels that Jordan Henderson is the best man for the job in central midfield for England. And I think there's a couple of things really with that. We'll get on to Henderson in just a second, but there's so many of the players for England seem to be playing just slightly out of position in order to accommodate, some of the players who probably don't deserve to be playing. I would like to point out at the moment as well, England probably have, and I may be wrong in this, but it appears to me at the start of the season, the outstanding midfield player in Europe in Jude Bellingham. But certainly Jude Bellingham's starting position was sort of on the left. It was left central midfield. I'm not going to suggest it was left wing. It wasn't. It was sort of left central midfield, and it's just not where he's playing at his best. That's not where he's best deployed. If you've seen, and I've not watched any of the La Liga games in their entirety. However, I have watched highlights of all of them, and the position he appears to be taking up more often than not. In some instances, you'd actually call it a number 10, and certainly with Toni Kroos, I've seen him a couple of times. Modric a lot deeper than him, but on occasion you'd almost call it a false 9. A lot of times, Jude Bellingham's the guy right in the box. He's the guy. He's either the furthest guy forward or the next one. What he certainly isn't is wide on the left, and I'm not sure why you would do that to England's, I think at the moment, England's best player. I understand you can make an argument that somebody else might be England's best player, but at the moment, I think in world football, European football, it's probably Jude Bellingham. I'd certainly in Madrid, they're amazed at quite how good he is, and he is an absolutely sensational player. I've got no qualms with Declan Rice being in there, quite rightly so. Declan Rice has been an excellent player for England, never let England down, and I think he's probably started the season very well for Arsenal as well. But to have a sort of a midfield three, sort of wide left, Jude Bellingham, wide right, Jordan Henderson, it makes no sense at all. Gareth Southgate's been at pains to suggest that actually he's watched Jordan, he's sent people out to watch Jordan Henderson play in the new Saudi League. Look, the Saudi League in a few years' time may well turn out to be a competitive league and one of the best leagues in the world, but let's make no bones about it, it's not that at the moment. So I've no idea why Jordan Henderson is in there, but Jordan Henderson shouldn't have been in the England team anyway. Liverpool were, a couple of seasons ago, were the best team. Were the best team in the UK, the best team in Europe. Them and Man City were sort of going at it. And on a couple of occasions, Liverpool came out on top. A point being, they were a very, very good team. But I remember watching them in that Champions League final against Real Madrid, and then since then, a couple of Newcastle. Newcastle. I say Newcastle. Liverpool appears to have a couple of big problems there. Number one is Van Dijk is often injured and certainly not the player that I thought he was. One of them is they sold Mane, who was a big player for them. I'm not saying he's gone on and done brilliant things since he left, but when he was there, he was absolutely superb. You feel like they sacrificed Mane to enable them to sign Salah on a long-term deal. One of the other problems is Trent Alexander-Arnold, for obvious reasons. Very, very talented footballer, but maybe found out a little bit on at fullback. Maybe he's not playing as well as he was. I'm quite sure he'll pick up and he'll have other really good purple patches in his career. But now's not one of them. So those are some of the problems. But one of the main problems that Liverpool had was in central midfield. And make no mistake about it. One of those big problems that Liverpool had was Jordan Henderson. So even before he moved, I'm not just going to blame the Saudi Pro League for this. He wasn't on it before then. He was still being selected. So I don't know. Look, it's no bad thing. It's not the end of the world drawing away in Poland when you play Ukraine. That's England is still top of the group, albeit they played more games. But they're looking all right. They look all right, and they probably will be all right. But you sort of want to see a little bit more ambition from the manager. And when I sort of look at the players who were on the bench, and I look at it and I see Phil Foden, Conor Gallagher. Okay, I'm not going to make the case that Calvin Phillips should be starting against Henderson. Calvin Phillips hasn't played, but certainly Abiri Eze on there as well. There's definitely a way to make a composition of that midfield where you put Declan Rice, the holding player, and maybe Jude Bellingham and, let's say, Phil Foden there. Just like there's a couple of number 10s, a couple of attacking midfielders there. Why not? Why would you not do that if you were England? I mean, I think England had something like 90-odd% passing. I'll have a look. I've got the stats up here somewhere. What does England have? 69% possession. 91% pass accuracy. Ukraine only had 2 shots, 1 on target. Obviously, they scored from one of those. So why wouldn't you? I can make a case for Conor Gallagher starting ahead of Jordan Henderson. There's a lot of things you could have done there, but he plays Henderson. Why? Loyalty? Oh, okay. Loyalty's a good quality, absolutely. But there comes a point where you, be so loyal that you play somebody who's not as good as the other people available to you. And again, we see Phil Foden, very, very wide right. Very wide right when he comes in. James Maddison, too far left. I think he started really well for Tottenham. That being said, I thought he was in... James Maddison wasn't one of the reasons that Leicester went down last season. I thought he was looking in pretty good form then. And I just look at it and I think a lot of the players... I'm not saying everybody's out of position to accommodate Jordan Henderson, but when you start playing Bellingham a little bit out of position, Maddison a little bit out of position, I'm not going to labour the point about Kane. He's playing further forward for Bayern Munich, I know that, but Kane is good enough that he can play deeper. He's played deeper lots of times, so I'm not. And you know what, England's goal came from that a pass from that deep position. It really did. But when you start playing 2 or 3 players out of position, and you're going to start players that are not sort of cutting it at the very top level now, like Jordan Henderson, it starts to impact the whole team. It really does. And just like a final word on Maguire, really. You watched... I thought Maguire is a shadow of his former self, an absolute shadow of the player that cost £80 million and signed for Manchester United. Actually, the very first kick-off at the game, if you watch it, the first thing... I think it's the second kick of the game. Whoever takes the kick off from the centre spot, passes it to Maguire, he miscontrols it, and then apologises. First thing he does is apologise. He looks like a fish out of water, to be honest with you. He really does. So again, I don't want to labour the point too much about Harry Maguire for the pure and simple reason is I don't feel that. I think with John Stones out, I don't feel there are a load of other options there, but. You know what? I'd even play White there, who's playing at fullback for Arsenal, but I still think him in there at centre-back next to Gahey would be a better option. I don't know. I just don't look at it and feel that Gareth Southgate's learning. And I sort of, when I look at these managers, I think Where is your ambition? Because surely the ultimate goal is you win that trophy as an England manager. You get legendary status. You are there alongside Sir Alf Ramsey. Yet he still seems to keep repeating the same mistakes. And I look at it and I think, you know what? Gareth Southgate can look and point to his team and say, I'm selecting attacking players. And he's right. He is right. Saka is an attacking player, as is Harry Kane, as is Maddison, as is Bellingham. However, he's not got enough attacking ethos as a manager to allow them to flourish, to allow them to thrive within that system. I'm going to use Tottenham as an example again because I think Ange Postecoglou is a good example. Now, I'm not sure how good Tottenham will be. I suspect they're not going to be up there all season because they may well, when they face the very best teams, I think they're going to be susceptible at the back. I think they're going to attack with an absolute swashbuckle about them. They're going to attack in waves. They're going to score lots and lots of goals. But I do think there's going to be a lot of... I think there's going to be a lot of 4-3s at Tottenham this season. I think there'll be some that go against them. You know what I'm saying, high-scoring games. But he does create a system in which attacking players can thrive, which is why you're seeing Maddison playing so well, which is why you're seeing Son. I think he scored a hat-trick in the last round of Premier League games. Son had been stifled under recent managers because he wasn't operating under a manager in which attacking players thrive. Postecoglou's one of those guys. And they play beyond themselves. They play in a really good attacking... It's not just an attacking formation, they're allowed freedom. So does Gareth Southgate pick these attacking players? Yes, he does, but he doesn't... I don't think he frees their minds creatively in a way that some managers do. And obviously Pep Guardiola is the best example of that. So I just find it a little bit odd. I just find it odd what Gareth Southgate is doing. Is it enough to qualify from the group? Yeah, I'm pretty damn sure it is. Is it enough to qualify for the group stage of major tournaments and get through to the knockout stages? Yes, it is. And there have been times watching England where we've not been able to do that and we've not been good enough to do that. So maybe, just maybe, that should be enough. However, I do also think that when England's let's be fair, there were only 3 European trophies. I'm not counting the Super Cup. There are 3 European trophies up for grabs last season. English teams won 2 of them, obviously Man City and our own West Ham. The English teams are winning a lot of the times winning the Champions League now. Couple of the English players, in terms of Declan Rice, Jude, Bellingham, cost £100 million. You're not going to find many better midfielders in the world than those two. There's not possibly, maybe you could make the argument that there are 2 better strikers in the world than Harry Kane. My point is, England have some world-class players. And I'll go back to something years ago that Alan Hansen said. He said, to win a World Cup, you don't need to have a team full of world-class players. He said, if you have 3 world-class players and a load of very good players, you're in with a serious chance you should be winning a World Cup. And I make him absolutely right on that one. And so I think when you look at the embarrassment of riches that England have, then there really is no reason why England shouldn't be setting their sights higher than just qualifying from a group. But I do feel we're straitjacketed by Gareth Southgate. And I am aware that Gareth Southgate's record, comparatively to most England managers, aside from Sir Alf Ramsey, is excellent. Gareth Southgate can rightly argue that he is the second best England manager there's ever been. But you know what? It's the second best, probably not good enough at the moment. I think you have to ask, that's really not the question. Is Gareth Southgate the second best England manager statistically there's ever been? I think yes, he is. But I would ask a different question. Is Gareth Southgate the best manager that could possibly manage England at the moment? Bearing in mind that we have players like Phil Foden and Marcus Rashford and Saka and Bellingham and Declan Rice and Harry Kane. I think the answer is no. That I think there are a lot of other managers who could unlock the potential of this squad before Gareth Southgate. There you go. Gareth Southgate. And I think there are almost every other manager that you could think of would come in, and they would not be selecting Harry Maguire, they would not be selecting Jordan Henderson for the very obvious reasons that I'm not going to insult you by stating. There's no big problems for England at the moment, but I just fear if we go into another tournament with this mindset, we're going to be repeating exactly the same mistakes we did before. And I would suspect that we might just fall at the final hurdle.